Garrett Dellinger. Let's start from the origin story. How does LSU get in on an offensive lineman out of Michigan?
Well, remember 2 years ago, James Craig went up there right when he got to campus, really, and said from the start, I'm casting a wide net. I'm going to go all over the country recruiting offensive linemen. I've worked all over the country, whether in the NFL or college, and he's done that. And he got Anthony Bradford, who we assume will probably be LSU's starting right guard in year 2 of his college career to leave Michigan and come down to LSU. Really the first guy to do so since probably Joe Barksdale, unless I'm missing somebody. But, for him to go back up 2 cycles later and get a guy in Garrett Dellinger, who is a top 100 player, is a top 15 offensive tackle in an offensive tackle-heavy class. And LSU really needed one. And with that wide net being cast, it seemed like Craig caught some momentum this spring by really just working Dellinger, his family, and getting kind of pitching what LSU has and doesn't have in terms of what they'll need for a depth chart. But all of this happening over Zoom calls and phone calls and text messages because Dellinger had planned to come down and see everything and didn't. So it's been one of those things where a lot of people, Matt, thought, okay, well, he's going to hold off until he gets to go see all these schools. But he said, look, at the end of the day, I knew I wanted to play at LSU. He had a Final Four of Ohio State, Penn State, and the in-state school of Michigan, all schools that recruit O-linemen very well. He had a Bama offer. He had a Wisconsin offer. They recruit offensive linemen very well. I find that telling is of his 15 offers, 7 or 8 are from schools that are very well known for recruiting, evaluating offensive line targets, and then producing them into the NFL. And for LSU, for Craig, to be out front of all those teams and kind of make that relationship early led to the commitment, and it's what they needed. And I have, in my mind, the vision for LSU's perfect offensive line class would be headlined by a couple of offensive tackles, maybe guys at one point who could play left and right tackle at the same time. And I feel like with Dellinger, they're halfway there.
So Shea, he plays left tackle at his high school in Michigan, and we know, like, oftentimes in high school, they'll put just the best offensive lineman at left tackle. Is he a left tackle in college? Is that where LSU is projecting him?
Well, he's got the athletic background. His dad and grandfather both played college basketball. His brother was an all-MAC football player, and then he himself, he's played basketball on a state title-winning team at Clarkston. He's got good footwork. He's played on a football team both ways, offense and defense, on the defensive line and offensive line for a Clarkston team that's won a state title in football. So he's got it in him, I think, athletically. At 6'5", 280, sure, to play left tackle. Now, I think that he could be an Austin Deculus type. He could end up playing right tackle and be an anchor there for you for a couple of years, or as Alan True, who works for 24/7, covers the Midwest and has seen him in action a bunch, pointed out, this is a guy that if early in his career you need someone who's just the best available guy off the bench, you can play him at guard, but eventually he can move out to tackle. He's got some versatility to him, but no doubt this is not a guy that they get as a quote-unquote tackle, but he's really just going to one day play guard and have no other options. This is a guy that'll give them some looks at offensive tackle for sure.
Shea, I saw another thing that you put out, that he's the 10th highest-rated offensive lineman that LSU, provided he signs, but he's committed now, dating back to 2000. Can you put some perspective on that, on just how rare it is for LSU to get a prospect like this at this position?
Well, did you read the article?
I did, yeah.
Okay, well, never mind. I was going to say, would you be able to guess any of the players? Well, it was a lot of, yeah. I guess, when you think of
Lyle Collins.
The number one player was, and then it's Ben Wilkerson and
Yeah.
Andrew Whitworth and Maya Tuhuma, who we remember it. He obviously transferred to Southeastern, but he was starting right away as a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
Deculus, Herman Johnson, Ethan Posick, Rudy Niswanger, Ryan Miller, and then Garrett Dellinger. And the thing that jumped out to me about the list was all of those guys hit. Like, they were all really good players. And beyond Ryan Miller, you would say everybody in there was a multi-year starter, most of them all SEC. So if you put him into that company, at least of where he's rated by, across the board, the 24/7 composite, all of the services together, they kind of view him in that light. So, yeah, we're talking about a guy who could have an impact similar to most recently guys like Posick and Deculus.
He's on Twitter at Shea Dixon, go 24/7. So let's look at this class now, Shea. They're at 13. Where do they go from here?
Well, they're at 12, right? Well, I think I wrote 13 accidentally today. I had to delete that, so hopefully you didn't get that knowledge from me. Because Dakota Mitchell decommitted, what was that, last week, and then they get this commit. So I think they're back to 12.
12, okay.
Or I could be, this will be my last chance being on with you because I could be wrong. They might be at 13. But point being, they've got 13 more spots. You can get to 25. But with Cam Jackson going to Memphis, that was their only public commitment still. So they may be able to carry that over and sign 26. I think the biggest thing I'm watching next is, I mentioned they need an offensive tackle class where you've got two bookends. And I think Tristan Lee, a 5-star out of Virginia, is the guy we're all talking about most. He's got LSU and is presumed to be top 2 alongside Clemson. Some other teams are still in the mix, but he's visited a bunch. He knows the campus. He talks to the staff, and he could be a guy that, left tackle, right tackle with him, and Dellinger would be a massive pull for Craig. But they've got their quarterback. They've got one running back committed. They're on their way to now building an O-line class, well on their way to a D-line class, and we know guys like Mason Smith are out there as the number 1 player in Louisiana. But I look at receiver, and they've got 2 out-of-state guys committed in Deion Smith and JoJo Earl, who are top 100 players. They're out of Mississippi and Texas. They're relatively local, to the areas that LSU's normally recruiting, but you got 2 kids right down the road in separate directions, one in Zachary, Chris Hilton, and one in Walker and Brian Thomas, who if they don't go to LSU, they're going to another SEC school. And both of them are top 100 players. Both of them are no doubt stars at the receiver position. And I think both of them are sort of must-gets for LSU in a way. So those are 2 guys I'm really focused on, with the reality that maybe they might make a decision before their senior seasons.
Is it safe to say, Shea, that LSU is going to use that spot from this class in backfill and sign 26? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, it looks, as though the 21 class is loaded in the state, and they're picking up so many guys nationally that they're going to benefit from being able to pick up another elite guy.
That's where I'm leaning, and I guess in layman's terms, for the people catching up on what it means, they could either, here in the next month and a half, find someone who either hasn't signed yet. There's not like Zach Evans signed. There's not a lot of guys out there who have not signed yet. Or find someone in the transfer portal. And I know new guys go in it all the time, but they've had this scholarship spot since February. And more guys than now have been in the portal, and they took 2 of them and didn't seem to make any other moves. So, yes, my guess is they'll just carry that spot over, and it just gives them a little more wiggle room to where they're not at the end of the process or at the end of December, like it was a year ago, having to make some tough decisions about how many spots they have left and how many guys might really be in play.
He's on Twitter at Shea Dixon, go 24/7. Y'all make sure you're reading his stuff there. You follow him on Twitter as well. Shea, anything, last thing before you jump, anything as far as the recruiting calendar or cycle amid COVID shutdown? I mean, obviously this would normally be camp time, right? We'd be talking about that. Like, what's sort of next on the recruiting calendar for the coaches?
Well, they're going to carry everything dead until July 31st is what the current date's set at. So then you would presume, okay, August 1st recruiting's back. Well, that's August 1st is a normal recruiting dead period, that whole month. And that's not only just so colleges can focus on the season, but in large part, the NCAA put it in at the request of high school coaches who said, hey, we've got 4 weeks till our season. We don't need our kids gone the whole time visiting colleges to watch practices or whatever. So if that remains dead, the earliest kids are going to be able to visit anywhere is when games start. And let's just presume they're going to have games. We don't know what that means for attendance, for prospective student athletes, and all that. Now, all of that being said, to answer the question, September is the earliest that, unless they change what is currently a mandated dead period in August, September will be the first time that coaches and recruits can see each other face to face again, and it would be only on their campus, which you would presume to be a game weekend.
Yeah, what a wild scenario unfolding. Hey, man, great job as always. We appreciate a couple of minutes. Glad you're having a good day.
Oh, thanks. Hey, and thanks for reading, man. I tried to check you on that story, but you had already read it. I'm so impressed.
I'm doing the best I can, Shay. Thanks, man. We'll see you.
All right, guys.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.